Hello and welcome everyone once again to our Lanu meetup. And we are here with the intention to raise our vibration, because when our vibration and our frequency is raised, it is much easier for us to manifest from that place and space. Tonight, I'm more than a little bit excited, and I think you can hear it by my voice and my pitch and the really big smile. I have been waiting a little while to interview Holli Massey, the creative producer, and tonight she's brought along her bonus sidekick, Jeremy, and so we're going to be sharing the screen with both of them. I'm not sure if Jeremy was totally up for the ride of a girls' night in with all of us, but I'm sure we'll make it worth his while. Welcome to you both. Hello, and nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Taryn. I've been excited about this as well. I loved chatting to you last time, although it did go for 3 hours, I think, our first chat, didn't it?
It did, and it extended far beyond what we both thought. You know, we'd chat for about 45 minutes. 3 hours later, we're like, well, I think we both need to go and get some stuff done. But you're very easy to talk to, and it's very lovely to be in your presence and your energy. And that's what I said to you at the time. You had this beautiful aura, and most of the time I was just sitting there and looking at it and thinking, oh, it's so lovely to bathe in that energy. Oh, so, Holli, what I might do is just sort of ask for a little bit of an introduction for some of our ladies who have never met you before or don't know anything about you, because you haven't always lived in Ireland. So can you give us a little bit of backdated history?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm obviously from Melbourne. I don't know where everybody else is from here. Jeremy's from Dublin. So Jeremy and I met 15 years ago. I was living over here in Ireland, and I worked in film and TV for 20 years and still do, actually. But we met here 15 years ago. We moved out to Australia. We had our 3 children, and during that time, I was working in, I know it's not all about work, but it kind of is, I suppose, because it's the creative producer and how it all kind of came about. But I was working in film and TV and got pretty kind of run down and pretty exhausted by working in advertising and producing TV commercials, and always wanted to start a business like this where I could use my skills to help. I'm all about the people, help people rather than brands, bring their creative projects to life. And also with the vision and the dream of working in sort of in the developing world. So kind of skill sharing, creative knowledge and personal development knowledge with the developing world. So that was kind of where the creative producer came from. But we always said we would move over here with the kids. And after Jeremy wrote a novel that was based in Dublin, and once we had that published, that was kind of what instigated the move over here, to make a film, basically, and to kind of maybe get more of your career off the ground here, move to a place where we could sort of kind of be a little bit more off the grid. I know Jenny knows where we live. Jenny's in Dublin as well. And create kind of like a lifestyle that was really, that we were both kind of working from our passion and our passion in life, rather than kind of working just to survive. So that's what we did 4 years ago. Yeah. And we're in Dublin for a year, and then we moved down here, and that's really been kind of like I think when you throw yourself into that sort of situation where you don't have a choice but to get your career happening online, and you know, you have to kind of make it work. So that's what we've been doing down here for the last 3 years.
So Jeremy, Holli's kind of filled in a little bit of her background and let everyone know that not only have you written a book, but she didn't mention, and I might jump in, or do you want to tell everyone what you're also doing and what you're up to?
Well, I'm at the moment, I'm very busy writing my second book, and we have been developing a couple of TV series over the last few years while we came down here to West Cork, rural Ireland, kind of like, you know, the feet of Ireland, the West Coast. And we kind of, I mean, Holly's getting the creative producer off the ground was just something that Holly was doing. Holly and I work together creatively. We've been doing that since we hooked up. But the creative producer initially, for me anyway, was just going to be Holly's kind of like whole groove. But as we went on and we just kept talking about it, I just kind of became involved as a kind of a writing mentor to a large extent. But myself personally now, I'm just kind of writing full time. I do a little bit of teaching as well. I was teaching in Melbourne when I was there, in Swinburne. I was teaching in the Burt Williams Centre with Aborigines. I was teaching in Wantirna and Paran for a few years. But now it's just full-time writing. It's very easy to do that where we live down in Ireland.
Mm. So yeah, I mean, we're second novel writing, but we've got a TV series slated to shoot. Well, it was this year, but with obviously the whole COVID situation, it's been pushed out to
January,
starting in January. So that is that's a
rural funeral drama. I have a history, ladies, being an undertaker. My family, it was an undertaking family. My father was an undertaker. My grandfather was an undertaker. And after a brief stint in acting school in 1989, I went into the family business, and I ended up being in it full time for about 5 years. And I didn't really feel it was my life path, although it has continued to be, my dharma to a large extent, just dealing with death and just being in that zone, being in that kind of vulnerable grief zone. I'm very comfortable there, and it's somewhere where because I suppose I'm so comfortable in it, I end up back in it with friends who are bereaved, that kind of stuff, without being an undertaker. But I wrote my novel that brought us over here in 2016 was about an undertaker in Dublin. So that was informed by my experience as an undertaker. And the TV series we have in development now, which is in a very late stage of development, thank God, we've got cool director, great star, we've got the finance, we've got production partners, all that kind of stuff. That's a rural funeral dramedy, if you like, set down here where we live, in a kind of place like this, which is really its kind of themes are really based in harking back to the funeral traditions of old. One of the things that I've noticed just in the death business was that there's been this collective just submission to this Victorian funeral model of surrendering our dead to strangers in dark suits who tell you exactly, what you can do, when you can do it, when I don't think that should be the case at all. And I think as people go on, they kind of want to take more ownership of their death, and of not their death, but the death that they're kind of like, custodians of, if you like. And one of the themes of the actual TV series, The Dying Trade, is that this undertaker, Manny Heenan, is ejected from his family business, which was based in that Victorian model with Irish kind of overtones and, edges and stuff. But he's approached by an Englishman, this gay Englishman who has been screaming, "Reclaim the dead," while he was, operating with the Victorian model, and he was something of a thorn in his side. But once he's down on his luck and he's ejected from his business, and he says, "Look, I'll bankroll you if you go back to the ancient Irish traditions." And he says, "Look, I'll have you as a partner." So they kind of, they pool their resources. And what he does is, in the whole kind of basis of his new business, which is called Anam Trasna, which is Irish for soul crossing, if you like. And he goes from the dark suit and the tie and the lugubrious face to just kind of, he grows his beard, he kind of hangs out on the beach, he has a kind of like a fire pit going and people can come and see him. And he encourages them to do everything. You've got 3 women who are going to be prepared to wash the dead. You're going to have somebody in the family who can get 5 planks and make a coffin. You can kind of clear the kitchen table and put the remains there. You can cover the mirrors with kind of cloth. You can stop the clocks. You can upend the chairs. If you're coming in the front door, make sure you go out the back door. All these kind of, and the keening, of course. All these Irish traditions, bringing them back. And it's kind of, it gives a more cathartic grieving process for a start. But that's just the basis of the TV series. Sorry, I mean, I could go into a death monologue for a couple of hours here.
We've gone straight into it.
Well, we might just go back to raising the vibe a little bit and work with the living and work with a little bit of a frequency booster there. Thank you, Jeremy. We are really interested. But we might just get back into the nuts and bolts of, Holli, what is it when you call yourself the creative producer? Tell us, what does that entail, and what does your typical day look like when you're working as the creative producer, and what are your clients experiencing?
So, good question. So I would be a facilitator. That would probably be the role of a creative producer. And it's interesting, like having Jeremy as a mentor, I have other people that come in as mentors as well. So a producer is someone that really facilitates and brings people, helps people with other mentors, or gives people information to be able to help finish their projects, if that makes sense. So I would, in the first few months, or the first sort of 8 weeks of working with people, I really spend a good amount of time really getting them to tap into what it is that they really want to create. Because a lot of the time I find when people come with a project, what they end up executing is something very different. I had one lady who came with about 15 different projects, and over the time of working with, she was quite overwhelmed with what she wanted to create. So over this sort of period of us working together for 8 weeks, which I sort of take you through a series of, your values, doing sort of strength profile testing, really kind of writing up your legacy, and looking at, I do an exercise called Dream Time. So it's really sort of like tapping into kind of, really understanding, I suppose, in your own sort of truth, or your own experience of what your ancestry is, for example, and looking at where you've come from, and then what your legacy is and where you want to go. So we sort of, we really talk and nut all that out, and really kind of like dig deep into those parts of yourself to be able to come out with a project that means something. And that you're passionate about, rather than just sort of creating something that you think you want to create. It's about sort of tapping into what is it that you really want to bring to the world. What change do you want to bring? What do you want to tell people? Or what? And usually within that process, it's that transition or that transformation of self, which happens, that also, helps to change the world around you. So that's kind of what I do. And then it's not all about the writing, but I seem to be working with a lot of people that are writing books at the moment. I'm also working with people that are writing blogs, creating podcasts,
okay.
theatre directors. And a lot of the stories are very deep, they're heartfelt, and they're very authentic, and they're all about the person's truth, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm sort of interested in working with. And so what I do is for me, it's really important to have the connection with the person. So that first sort of eight sort of to 12 weeks is really us getting to know each other, and really kind of, working together to find, I help you find it. I don't tell you what to do. It's more like helping you to kind of facilitate you to come up with your own projects. And then it's, then we're in the development mode, and that's the execution. And I bring the different people in if anyone's kind of stuck to sort of help with the development of the project. And then we look at marketing and all that kind of jazz as well. So
when you're looking at clients, if we're sitting here, what kind of people need a creative producer?
It's people that I find a lot of people have this kind of burning desire inside them to create something. A lot of people will say, I've always wanted to write a book, or I've always wanted to create something, or I've always wanted to tell this story, or I've always wanted to, share my truth with the world. So they're the kind of people I think that I seem to work with. That everybody, you know, there's so much fear around it. It's like, I don't feel like I'm good enough. I don't feel I can write well. I don't feel like I can do this, or whatever it is. And, you know, as we all know, we can all do whatever we want. It's about putting the intention out there, and it's about finding the right people to help you through that and support you through that process. So,
you know, one of my favourite people in the world is Sir Ken Robinson, and you'd probably be familiar with him in your neck of the woods because he's in England. But he's a professor of education, and I just love the way he views the world. And he says that, you know, we are building our education system here and our schooling system based upon our own fears of the future. And so we are assuming that we know what the future looks like, you know, and we really honestly cannot predict what it's going to be like in the next 20 years. So if we are really making children conform and telling them what to do and how to do it, we're actually stopping them from actually developing their own creativity. And what would be a far better education system in this world is to encourage creativity, because when you encourage creativity, people are then able to think laterally, are able to think outside the square. So it doesn't matter what our future looks like in 20 years, because we would have brought up an entire generation of people who know how to adapt and to respond and to expand and think about new ways of approaching it. So I think that brings me back to, you know, being quite excited about what you're doing, because you're encouraging people to do something that's been sitting and burning inside of them for so long that sometimes, you know, we can't get on with the rest of our life because we kind of feel stuck because we're not being creative, and we just don't know where to turn to in terms of support and help. So what would, you know, if someone were coming to see you, you know, what would your day look like in terms of connecting with them? You know, is it Zoom calls? How does it work?
Yeah, I do it all online,
Yeah.
and it is Zoom calls. I'm running a group at the moment. I find group work is really dynamic and beneficial for people, because they get more out of seeing, well, kind of like, you know, they're creating a bigger kind of community for themselves, in the sense they're tapping in with like-minded people that are doing the same thing as them. But they're also, you know, within the group, just like this, you know, you're asking questions and people are kind of listening, and there is a, you know, if there's something that somebody's struggling with but they maybe don't want to speak up or whatever it is, there's someone will normally answer their question within the group. So it's really, I don't know, it's a very kind of like, I think it's a very rich way to work with people. The group I've got at the moment are just amazing. You know, they're all really supportive of each other, and we're actually doing a read through of one of the ladies' projects today, which is great. Everyone wanted to do that, so instead of doing a normal group, we're all going to be doing a read through of a play, which is great. But yeah, I think it's interesting what you say about education, because I think the education system needs a complete overhaul. And I think this time has been really interesting in terms of, you know, with lockdown and having children at home, and we've toyed with the idea of homeschooling. Homeschooling for us is probably, you know, how we kind of thought about homeschooling before the lockdown happened sounded really stressful and really kind of like impossible, and we'd have to bring people in and we'd have to but we have one son in particular who is very much wanting to be homeschooled. He's in first year, so he's 13, which is year 7, going into year 8 actually in September, which so the kids are not going to go back to school basically and see the end of this year out. They'll be starting in their new year in September, if everything goes to plan. But yeah, just the whole homeschooling thing. Our kids are very creative. You know, they've been sort of doing loads of making short films. They've been doing loads of music, and as you said, just seeing. You know, we all have that ability in us to be. You know, we are creative beings. I mean, we come into this world with a huge amount of creativity. I mean, you see how kids are. They are naturally creative beings, and as you say, you kind of get put into the school system and told how to kind of be and how to behave and the structured sort of system, or you know, how to learn, and it just knocks that out of them, which I know we need systems in this world, and I know we need to kind of learn in a particular way, but it doesn't work for everybody, and you know, we lose that ability to, I think, to be able to connect to ourselves. You know, we're not sort of taught to stay connected to ourselves. And so we kind of get to the age that we are, and there's that element of always feeling, you know, I'm not on the right track. I'm not doing what I want to do. I feel scared about making changes. I feel fearful around the fact that I can't write. I have fear around not being able to, you know, paint or whatever it is. Whereas we all have it inside us, and it's about really honoring that in whatever way that is for you. And finding that process. I suppose that's the other thing within the group. It's all about finding your own process and trusting. I call it trusting you're an artist, trusting that intuition to help guide you, and creating from source. Because at the end of the day, when you're in the flow of creativity, it's so healing in so many ways, because you're not anywhere. You're in the moment. You're one with the moment, which is such a healthy kind of, you know, a healthy place to be, especially there's so much anxiety and stress in the world at the moment. It's a nice place to get to. Did that answer your question?
I goosey, you were, yeah, I just got goosies when you were speaking, because being creative is exactly that. It's that mindfulness right there in the moment, and you're in peak flow. And listening to your intuition and letting that guide you. And that in itself is one way to raise your frequency and one way to raise your vibration, and feel really satisfied because you're feeding something deep within, something that's really coursing through your veins. So if, in terms of working with your clients, what do you want them to know when you're working with them?
I would like to think that I create a space where people can feel really authentic and true to themselves, and to be able to be honest, and share honestly, because I think that's where you find your best work, is when you can be real with yourself and be real with your process. I know Jeremy and I often talk about that a lot in terms of, you know, I think you got to dig deep to find the gold, you know, and it can be hard sometimes, I think, to find the gold, to dig for the gold, but it is, I mean, it's in there. It is in there, and sometimes, as you know, Jeremy will even, you know, with the process, even just kind of writing something, or the creative process, it's like you never really get it. You never get it right the first time. You know, you've got to go through layers. It's such a process of personal development, isn't it? Yeah. Really. Yeah. And you know, I mean, this book here is what I pretty much get all my clients to. This, I'm not fluffy. I'm very practical. Okay, creativity can be. I don't have an airy fairy program in the sense of you can you know, there's got to be a reality to it as well, in the sense that if you want to create something tangible, you have to do the work. You just have to. If you're going to take it, if you're going to take the steps to do it, you have to keep showing up, and you have to do the work. And I love this book because it's Stephen Pressfield is his name. He's got some great writing courses and things on his website, and but it's just a very in your face, practical kind of like show up, do the work, take the you know,
Take the leap.
Take the leap, and just do it. You know, he's got another one which is
The War of Art.
The War of Art.
We've just got Kerry coming up in the chat box saying, I love that book, so good. It's a good audio too.
Yes. So, and as it says here, it's straight from the hip, and it's very powerful. And he's not fluffy, you know. He doesn't fluff around, and I love that. You know, he just sort of says it how it is, and you know, that I think that's the that's, as I said, that's the power in all of that, is really showing up and doing the work. And of course we have those times where we feel, you know, the insecurities come in and we want to hide away, but the showing up for me in that time is being honest with that. I'm having a shit day. I can't write today. I'm really struggling with this, or I'm really struggling with that. Because that's where I can really help. You know, it can really help the process if I can understand where you're at, rather than feeling like, oh God, I'm supposed to be writing this book. I'm just not going to say anything today because I don't know what to do. It's like, it's okay. None of us know what to do. You know, none of us have the answers. Creativity, there is no right answer. It's about finding what works for you.
That's never a true word was said. I'm sorry, I'm sitting here and the rain is getting heavier and heavier. So I hope you can hear me because I don't have my microphone. And I'm conscious aware that, you know, we've got a tin roof in this old Queenslander house. So next projects of what you're looking for, or what Jeremy's looking for, what happens next?
So at the moment I actually have another group just starting, and yes, we can hear you loud and clear. I've got another group starting. I've got a couple of guys in this group actually. One is he's not sure what he's writing yet. He works with a lot of homeless on the street, and he's OCD, bipolar, and really was on a lot of medication, and he's off medication. He went on a keto diet, he's suicidal, you know, he had lots of different kind of, and I'm not breaking any confidence here, he's very open about it and plugs it all over Facebook. So he's writing a book at the moment, and he's a very inspiring individual. And I spoke to another guy yesterday who's coming into the group, who is a chef, a comedian, a laughter yoga teacher, and he's also a recovered alcoholic, and he's kind of mixing all his skills into creating a program for chefs that you know, to kind of help kind of change the way the system works within the catering and hospitality industry through all his skills. So I look for projects like that, projects that bring change and that are innovative and that have personal kind of liberation, personal transformation. They're uplifting, inspiring, empowering, but also shine a light on something that maybe isn't working, or you know, there's, as I said, there's people I'm working with that have been through a lot of trauma, for example, but they've come out the other end, and you know, they're really sharing their skills with the world in terms of how they did that. So they are stories of personal liberation, looking into the sort of like the deeper parts of life, I suppose. As I said, I don't kind of fluff. I'm too fluffy. It's you know, we need changes. We need some change. We need to kind of, you know, there's a paradigm of fear that we live in, and we need to kind of, like, as you said, raise the vibration and bring in and really kind of put that to the side and say no to it. And that's what I'm interested in, is really helping people through that process to say it's okay, and you are normal, and this is, you can tell this story, and I will support you through it, you know. Yeah.
So you and Jeremy have been working together. What's that like as a couple when your businesses are intertwined?
Interesting. No.
It's kind of you know, Holly and I were, I mean, I've been writing for a long, long time. And when I met Holly, she was, you know, coming from the producer end. So we had that lovely common ground to be able to talk. I mean, Holly had been, she'd worked on feature films, on kind of short films, on music videos or film clips, as they call them in Australia. And everything, you know, TV commercials, all that kind of stuff. So we had a real, we had a currency, you know, we had a vocabulary around that. And we also had, it was effortless, you know, we understood each other, and we were kind of like, you know, singing from the same hymn sheet to a large extent, you know, and, you know, where we didn't, we challenged each other. And, you know, out of that came the growth, you know, which is the real beauty of it, you know, because I mean, you don't want everybody to just be singing in harmony the whole time. There has to be kind of like, you know, a little bit of kind of conflict for growth to occur. And creatively, I think that's really healthy. So, and even with this, I mean, I'm a kind of Holly has, as she said, she has a good few mentors. I just happen to be here. But with the current group, I think she's got 8 people in her group at the moment, and they're all writing. It's weird, you know. It's just kind of like, it's just the way it happens, you know. And you know, when I say weird, in a serendipitous kind of like fashion, it's like, okay, this is really, really positive for everybody, because there's this momentum through the collective that is really, really just incredibly beneficial to everybody working together. And as Hal said, if somebody's not asking a question, you know, that they feel burning inside them, and they mostly do, but even other people asking other questions apply to them all. So it's easy to answer your question. At this stage, we have it down. It's kind of easy, you know?
Yeah. I don't think we know any other way.
I think that's very lucky. And I guess, you know, you would have been there through the process then, Holly, of Jeremy writing his book.
Yeah. So yeah, this is basically where the whole idea of really the creative producer came from. And it's funny, we were just having a conversation about this with a lady just this morning before this. Is, you know, when we went through the process of kind of getting the book published, and it was a minefield. It's a minefield of going through, of understanding publishing, understanding agents, understanding, you know, drafting, understanding, like, you name it, anything, marketing, the works. And it took us really years of research and to kind of to understand, you know, what to look out for when you go through that process. And I suppose, yeah, I mean, with my skills as well, you know, working across, you know, not only commercials and stuff, I've done art residencies, I've done exhibitions, you know, so I've kind of had this broad skill. And I used to really kind of not beat myself up, but I'd be like, where do I actually kind of want to sit with all of this? And then going through the process with Jeremy, it all just kind of crystallized one day, and I just thought I can really help people on, you know, a broad kind of spectrum to be able to bring, you know, lots of different creative projects to life. And so yeah, did I answer that question? I'm going way off track.
I think I went way off track in my interview with you. So I just go with the story and go with the flow. Yeah, so I can't even remember what my question was now. But essentially going back to Jeremy's book, I will send the link out when the Zoom link goes out for everyone. I'll send a link to Jeremy's book as well, because it just gives you an excerpt from the book, and you can have a little taster of that. So Jeremy, you had your book published with Penguin?
I did, yeah. In 2015, we were living down in Australia at the time, and you know, as Holly said a minute ago, it was kind of like, you think when you get into the hands of someone like Penguin that it's all going to be great, like hand it over, great, this is all going to go by itself. And to an extent it does. But it's like what they don't tell you in Harvard Business School. My agent, who is wonderful, my agent in New York, who I found just, I mean, we were living down in Melbourne. I finished the draft that went out in 2012. It took about, I don't know, it's 6 months to get an agent. There's
80 no's, 80 knockbacks.
yeah.
So you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Can't take that personally.
But then when we got the agent, then it took another 6 months to get the deal. And then it took another kind of, we got the, I had the call with Penguin in December 2013. And we didn't do the edit until the kind of like Northern Hemisphere summer of 2014. And then it didn't come out as a hardback book until May 2015, and then as a paperback in 2016. So you
takes a long time,
and that was all very exciting to a large extent. And but all these different milestones and the activities, you know, nobody tells you what's going to happen. They kind of break it to you as it's happening. So there was no roadmap for us at all. Even from my agent, she didn't give any tips. Like, I suppose the biggest lesson, and Jenny, you'll be aware of this, when we came back from Australia, at that stage, the year had, or the book had been out, and certainly the hardback had been out a year. And we kind of found ourselves kind of like doing our own marketing campaign. Penguin did one. They have a marketing department, and you know, I did interviews with loads of different.
They market from their own sort of.
Yeah.
They
kind of.
They don't market you, know, and that's one thing, yes, I think, is that they're two completely different things. Yeah. You know, you've got to market yourself.
They've got about 30 or 40 books they're doing at the same time, and they have little interviews with kind of like, you know, writers' journals or kind of literary magazines, and the odd magazine like Esquire I did. And one or two maybe kind of, I'm not sure if they did any radio interviews, I can't remember, just a little bit, but it's over a very, you know, confined space of time. And then it's over. When you should be, with the life of a book, you should be doing your marketing campaign for about 2 years. So nobody said to us, here, Jerm, can you organize that yourself? You want to get your own publicist? You want to really get out there and start pushing this? And so we had to learn that on the hoof.
Which is basically what we do with everyone. We really kind of bell everybody up with all the information that you can possibly get, that we've kind of, you know, collated and learnt over the years, you know. But I mean, you know, that we also have a film deal on coming for Paddy Buckley, which we're really excited about. So again, that's going to have its own life. It'll come out as a film, and then you know, there'll be more book sales. So it really is like it's, you know, when you do write a book, it's not just, you know, it is a very kind of, you know, that's why it's important to put your passion and your love into it, you know.
Absolutely. And then, you know, if you think about Penguin, such a long drawn out process, and then you start the film, and then we have COVID and it's another long drawn out process before you even get to start. That must be very frustrating.
Yeah. I suppose we're kind of used to it now.
Yeah, and this kind of like this whole COVID life is quite normal for us, because, you know, I'm just upstairs writing. Holly works from home with this, so it's kind of the only difference for us is, you know, we can't go to the movies.
We've got the kids at home.
We got the kids, yeah.
Oh, it sounds like a blissful life, Holly and Jeremy. I much prefer the cooler weather than to the heat. So I might just check in put in the chat box for everyone if you have any questions for Holly and for Jeremy about the process or what they do to help other people. If there's any curiosity around that, if you want to pop questions in the chat box, I will read them out. Else, if it's pretty quiet in the chat box, I'm happy to open up the conversation and allow everyone just to have a conversation, because that's always a good opportunity to let things flow. So I'll just put my glasses on and check and see. No questions for now, which means that we've probably, oh, here we go. So Kerry is asking, when you were an undertaker, Jeremy, did you help people with their grief as part of that? And is your new series a part of that experience?
What a delicious question. Yeah. It's when I was an undertaker, the Irish funeral model really, certainly, I mean, I was working here in the 90s, from about 1990 to about 2003, all up. And the Irish funeral model generally takes place over 3 days. So it's kind of very, very quick. You're just in, and there's every kind of funeral that you can imagine: children, murders, suicides, natural deaths, mothers dying of cancer, whatever. This is just like every week normal. So a family is completely derailed, and you go in, they don't know what's expected of them, what they're to do. What I found kind of solace for myself, and what was obviously help for different families, was to just take all that pain away and say, look, listen to them, listen to what they want, set out a series of milestones for them. And then just to say, look, this is all going to happen automatically. A car is going to come up and pick you up. I'm going to phone you whenever anything significant is happening. I'm going to remind you of things. Your job is to grieve. And that's a kind of, obviously, you know, if they do it right, it's a 2-year process. But the funeral is so important. It really is so important. And to do that as humanely as possible. Now, we did it like that. Certainly I did it as much as I could like that within the model that was available. But now with the TV series I'm writing, it's a kind of a candle. It's a candle to what grief, the grieving process, and the undertaker's role and the family's role in the whole thing is you know, this is what could be, you know. I think it's so important to grieve so fully, you know. It's the most integral part of life. Is
it part of the series?
Oh, what's that? Sorry.
So is it a part of your new series?
It's a part of my new series. Yeah, it is. It's there is a number of funerals in it, and there's the journey of the undertakers in it in the 2 different models, because this guy Manny Heenan, his sister comes in, ejects him from his company, Heenan's Funerals, and then he starts up this Anam Trasna business, which is a completely different model. And we see families going through the traditional funeral model and families going through this kind of like different. I don't really want to use the word new age, because it isn't that, you know. I was working in Melbourne just before we left with a company called Natural Grace, run by 2 women down in Melbourne, who one of them in particular, the woman who started it, had lost her husband at the age of 29 and was very dissatisfied with the kind of the traditional, you know, available funeral. So she started up what she calls the first holistic funeral company in Australia, Natural Grace, and they do the most beautiful job. And Anam Trasna is a kind of like, it's a more grassroots version of what she was offering. And it's, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, does it?
That's what happens. You'll go off
I get lost. I get lost. Yeah.
Carrie can always, Carrie said you did. Thank you, Jeremy. And we have, Kay has a question here. She said, you've mentioned you have to dig deep to find the gold, and sometimes it is hard to find. Can you explain some of the practical processes that you might suggest to do this work and to take that leap?
Okay, so I feel that when you embark on this process, there's that feeling in your body that's already there, that's like, I really want to create something, I really want to do something. So taking that first step, and whether it's writing your book, whether it's sitting down at your desk to put a plan together, is one practical first step that you can do, is making that a reality. I really liken kind of like creativity. It's almost like a conveyor belt in your body. It's like you have all these ideas and they just keep building up, and they build up and they build up and they build up. And if you don't kind of let that thing come off the conveyor belt, you just end up full of ideas, and you become this kind of ball or this vessel of just like, oh my God, I'm going to explode. So the very act of just sitting down and writing that down and putting it out on paper is, I think, practical step number 1. And in fact, we've just done, here's another book for everybody, The Artist's Way. we've just done 21 days. This book is kind of based on really the foundations of writing every morning, 3 pages. They're called morning pages. You write for 3 pages with a pen and paper. First thing in the morning when you get up, and you write whatever you want to write, and you just keep writing. And you write, even if you've got nothing to write, you just say, I've got nothing to write. You just keep writing. It's just about getting out, and that's the clearing. That's the clearing, and that's the kind of the digging deep to find the gold, is getting stuff out. You've got to get stuff off the conveyor belt so you can allow the new ideas to come in. So that's one thing. I also go through a process of working what your values are. I find that activity. Most people love that activity. Like, you know, just what do you value? A lot of people don't know what their values are. They don't know what they stand for. They don't know what they believe. Well, they may know what they believe in, but they've never actually gone through the process of articulating it or writing it down, and owning it. You know, like my values are, you know, I have to feel inspired. I have to feel empowered when I'm doing. I need to have adventure in my life. I need to have creativity in my life, and I need to feel challenged. And I can pretty much guarantee you that if those 5 things are not in my life, then I feel out of alignment. I feel out of balance. I don't feel like I'm doing what I should be doing. So I check in with those a lot, but a lot of people have never sat down and worked out what their values are or done that exercise. So yeah, we go through an exercise doing that, and I do get everybody to, once they kind of work out what their values are, I've got a big sheet of list of them. I work a lot on butcher's paper. You know, it's all about being big and getting things out and putting things up on the wall in front of you, so you can be reminded every day of who you are and why you've started this process and why it's important for you to do. So there are a couple of the tools there.
Super. We've got a few bits coming in here. Penny said she heard about Natural Grace over the weekend, and yes, they're doing amazing work. Kerry said, Holly, you mentioned strengths profile. Does she have one she prefers to do?
Yes. So I, at the moment, that's a new part of the program, because I did it myself about 6 months ago, and I found it invaluable, and so I've kind of added it into the program for people that want to do it. It's not compulsory. It's not. I'm actually thinking about just adding it and getting everybody to do it, because it's everyone that does it, they love it. But yes, I can share that link with you if you like. And there is a wonderful lady. I'm about to do her training, so I can start unpacking it myself for clients. But I've been outsourcing it to date. The wonderful lady called Therese Tui, who actually lives up near Byron. And she does a fantastic unpacking of the strengths profile test. It's about an hour and a half session, 2-hour session. So I think the strengths profile test is online. I think you have to pay for I think it's like $50 or something. Not a lot. And then you can do a session with her to unpack it, and it's amazing. It really helps you to. It's all based on energy, really. So, you know, how you might do it, the answers you might have now might be different if you did it in 6 months, and it tells you kind of where you still, like where you get your energy from, basically, what's draining you, where you're out of alignment, where you can kind of bring more energy into what you're doing and what you love. Yeah.
Super. We're just double checking who wrote The Artist's Way. Was it Julia Cameron?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, Julia Cameron. Is it the positive psychology one? And then Kerry goes, I know which one. It's amazing. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, super. So just checking, I might...
Another really inspiring person for people just to dig into creativity is Elizabeth Gilbert. If anyone, you probably people know her, I don't know, but she's done a great talk recently with Russell Brand about her creative process and her spiritual process, actually, and how she kind of like wrestles with, you know, the source, I suppose, or the spiritual element of her process, which is really interesting. But she's really great as well. She's got some great books, and
really humble.
Yeah.
So that was 3 book options for us to all get up to and read, and a strengths profile thing to look up to. So we're walking away with homework.
Yeah, for anybody who is interested in the, you know, in writing and a process, is do you 21 days of morning pages.
Yeah, you'll be out and running.
Yeah.
So Jeremy, I'm a bit curious, when you say you spend your day writing, what does that look like? Because, you know, we all imagine, you know, I see the picture of like Paulo Coelho in his beautiful room with his beautiful desk. It looks quite magnificent. It's peaceful and there's no children around. What does your day look like?
Well, it's kind of like, my kids are a little bit older now. I mean, they're young. They're kind of 11, 13 or 14, but they get it, that they kind of, and they can occupy themselves. So I don't really have an issue with the kids anymore. But it's kind of, I've just recently started leaving my phone downstairs because it's a horrible distraction, you know. And when I do that, I battle away for the day, you know. It's kind of like, I mean, your man Stephen Pressfield, he called it the war on art. For me, it is war. It's kind of like, it's not, I mean, people have this notion of, oh man, you're so lucky. Even my kids say to me sometimes, you're lucky, Dad, you get to write and love what you do. I love having written. I don't really like writing at all. In fact, sometimes I hate it. It's like picking out kind of like, you know, nails. It's not easy sometimes. It's like getting blood from a stone, but it continually trickles. And if I get a good page done in a day, I've done a good job. You know, that's for me. That's success.
Actually, it's interesting that you say that, because there is a talk, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about that war of art and why we see it as war, and, you know, why can't we become friends with it? Why does it have to be something that's so hard? You know, you know, it's almost like I mean, there's a couple of different conditionings. One is, if you're an artist, you're never going to make any money, which is a load of crap, you know. And 2, yes, creativity can be hard, but why don't we make friends with it? Why do we have to see it as a war? I mean, you can answer that question.
Yeah.
But, you know, why do we have to see it as this thing that's like it's almost like a burden, and wear it like a badge of honor? I think Elizabeth Gilbert talks about that. It's almost like artists wear this, I'm not saying you do, but, you know, this badge of honor in terms of, yeah, it's so hard, but I push through, and it's like, you know, being friends with it, I think, is
you do have to make friends with it, but you know, and I'm certainly long surrendered to the notion that it's not easy, you know. And when I say war, I mean, I'm very happy to sit down and forward this story and wrestle with the notions and just get that sentence right and go back and restructure it and continually iron and re-iron what I've written. But it's not, you know, when I say it's not easy, I mean, I can do it. I'm very happy to do it. And I really love having done it right, like getting it right. That's the reward of it. But it's kind of, to turn up and do it every day. And I know Jenny, again, you know, she's a writer. It's kind of like, it's not just a pleasure to write. It can be a serious chess game, like, you know, and, you know, you're playing against yourself. So it's you're not going to easily win it, you know what your moves are. You know?
That's interesting, isn't it? I find it so fascinating. It really is just such a deep look into our own psyche.
Yeah, it is.
Really,
yeah.
You know, that's what I love about creativity, is it is like, it's a full kind of dig into personal development and how we operate within ourselves and the world and on the page.
There are days when it's total pleasure, you know, when you're just going like, oh my God, this is like, you know, but that's not all the time, you know.
Do you have a practice that you do before you start to write each day?
I make coffee.
A meditation perhaps, or a coffee.
I know a lot of people do meditate and get into that zone, and I do meditate. I do meditate, and sometimes, I mean, a friend of mine, Shane Craddock, just put up on his Instagram page that this meditation for getting the best out of yourself, and it was a half an hour long, and I did it, and I just did it as an experiment at the end of the day because I wasn't anywhere near my phone when he actually did it live. But that was helpful, and I can see that you can step out of that meditation just ready to go, and boom. But I'm pretty much there. I'm kind of
You're in it all the time.
I'm in it all the time, and I'm never not writing. And the fact that now I'm in the middle, I mean, I'm 100 pages deep into this novel I'm writing. It's never out of your head, you know. It's kind of
He needs to go swimming to get away from it.
Yeah, I jump in the sea.
You do go swimming in the sea.
I jump in the sea every day.
In the Atlantic, which is like cold.
I don't even jump in the ocean here, so I can't begin to imagine that.
It's a big thing here. The whole cold water swimming thing is it's become a bit of a I think it's obviously been a thing everybody's always done, but it's become a bigger thing, I think, in the last sort of 2 years. There's like, especially lots of women actually.
That's the Wim Hof movement that you're following, Jeremy?
It's actually Holly really got me into it. She was I love Wim Hof. I think he's cool, you know, and I think he's a very entertaining character, and what he's doing is amazing. But I'm just very simple. I'm not going the whole kind of like full Wim Hof thing. Holly was swimming for about a year, even during the winter, and it was only last summer, Northern Hemisphere summer, that I got into it for the first time. And from about kind of like April, May to maybe October. Yeah.
It's doable.
It's doable. I don't do it in the winter.
I swam the other day, and I must admit I nearly had a tantrum when I came out because it was so cold, and I was so annoyed. But the water looked beautiful.
Yeah,
it was like it looked like literally like you're in the Caribbean, but when it was like a bucket of ice. And I hopped out, and I was like, I just want warm weather. I just don't want to be swimming in cold water all the time. But you do get a buzz out of it, you know.
You do, yeah.
And if you do it all the time, it's almost like your skin sort of like thickens up a little bit.
Again, it's great having done it.
You know? Like the writing process. Yeah. I think we're into kind of like creating hardship for ourselves, aren't we?
The rewards are in the aftertaste. Yeah.
Jeremy, we've got one final question and then we'll wrap it up because we're heading on to the hour. Belinda's asking, does writing become a habit if you do it daily?
Yeah, it does. But it's funny. I remember when I'd finished my novel, I kind of was just looking at other writers who were further along their career than me. And one of the best pieces of advice I got was when your novel comes out, be sure to be already writing another one. Because you can get caught up in the whole kind of like, oh, this is what I wrote it for, and isn't this one, without writing, and then it nearly atrophies to an extent. You got to keep writing, you know. So I've got I have to write all the time, and it's I've always got something. Just as I've always got a book beside me that I'm reading, I've always got something that I'm writing, even if it's a TV series, if not a book.
And I think it's like anything. It's like, you know, when you step into, again, it's like personal development. When you step into doing something that you're not used to doing, the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit, the more it becomes a part of who you are, becomes a part of your life. And then all of a sudden you're doing something that you never thought you would ever do. And it becomes a natural part of, you know. I just saw a question there from Kerry. What's your greatest achievement outside of Jeremy and the kids? Somebody asked me that the other day, actually, and it made me really think about this because I was like, interesting. But I would say that my greatest achievement, and this might sound a little bit kind of a bit wanky, excuse my language, but is how I've navigated life and how I've kind of faced my own kind of problems and the friendships and the support that I've created outside of that. I think that for me has been
something you value.
That I've really value because it's been hard, you know, at times it's been really, really hard. And but I would never have it any other way. And I love the people I've met along the way. especially like Taryn. Just to be able to meet like-minded people and have these kind of conversations, I think is it's what buzzes me up about life, and I love that. I love that I can do that. You know.
Well, we're finishing with a great question, and sorry, Kerry, I hadn't seen that. It was tacked on the end of your previous question. So we've finished on a beautiful high note, and that feels what a beautiful gratitude that is, Holly. My gratitude to you both for joining us tonight. We've had an extraordinary time, had great insights into the lives of two people who are actively living their creative life. And we will send out some links tomorrow to all of you who have listened to which books those were, and also a little copy of the excerpt of Jeremy's book as well. If you would like to connect with Holly, she is called The Creative Producer on Facebook. And you can, I think, is your Facebook group also for everyone to join? Is that a private one?
No, it's for everyone. It's called the Creative Engine Room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great one to connect in. And within that group, you know, it's filled with a whole heap of creatives, people who are wanting to pursue their life in a creative endeavor and form. And so it's always wonderful when you're surrounded by that kind of energy, because where one or more are gathered in the place, we raise that vibration as well. Kay, were you putting up your hand? Oh, no. Okay. I suddenly thought I might just quickly take you all off mute just to say goodbye if you wanted to say goodbye. You don't have to. There we go. Unmute and unmute. And oh, hi, Grace and Anna. So we're just finishing up here. So thank you very much to both of you. I've had a great night. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, thank you, Holly. And
can I ask anybody a question here? I know we're going a little bit over time, but is anyone here a writer? Does anybody write?
Just a minute. Okay, maybe we'll put Anna back on mute. I think Belinda's a writer. You can talk, Belinda.
I can talk. Yeah, well, I wrote a children's book a few years ago about a local museum exhibit, and it did really well locally, but I did all the self-publishing, all the promoting, basically locally. But I haven't, I've written other manuscripts and sent them off to publishers, but they remain in the slush piles around the country. So I'm a bit stuck in that regard.
Yeah, and are you still writing now, or is it something you've put to the side? Or?
Every now and then I'll get an inspiration and I'll just go and write something. And so I've probably written about 20 children's books, but I haven't sort of thought, I'm just going to do the self-publishing thing again, because it is actually a lot of work. So I'm just still sending it off to publishers and just trying different modes and stuff.
Yeah. Do you have a blog or anything, or?
I have a